Hi, it's Penny here, and in this video I'm going to be going through all the 2024 book releases I read. So I have 27 here. I'm going to tier rank them and just talk a little bit about whether I thought they were worth the read. So here's my tier ranking list. We'll start at the start. We have Detective Beans by Li Chen. So this is just a super cute children's book, but the art is bright and colourful and the jokes are, I found, hilarious, but also really wholesome. So basically this young cat boy just loses his hat and then goes all over town chasing the adventures that his hat has been on. I think I read this at a time when I was feeling particularly stressed, and so it was like such a nice break from all of that nonsense. So I'm actually going to put this in my favorites because I really loved it. And I think if you're in the mood for something like bright and colourful and fun to just brighten up your day, then this could be it. Then I read The Silence Factory by Bridget Collins. So every time I talk about this book, I say that I only picked it up because I really loved The Betrayals by Bridget Collins, and ever since I read that, I've been chasing that feeling. Unfortunately, I'm not getting it from Bridget Collins' other books. So The Silence Factory is about this spider silk that on one side it creates complete silence, the other side has some problems, and we're following this young man who has had some family tragedy. He's kind of trying to find a new life and he gets involved in the marketing of the silk, and we're also following kind of back in time the wife of the guy that discovered these spiders that make the silk and kind of her awful situation. So in both cases these main characters have really awful love interests. In the past, it's the woman's husband who's a complete asshole. In the future, it's this spider silk businessman. And it's just completely annoying the whole time that they're trying to please these horrible men. So I think I will put this in not quite it. It was okay, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. So next we have Monstrous Volume 9. So Monstrous is this really great graphic novel series with amazing art. It's also quite dark, and it's all around kind of this war between humans and witches and these different like animal gods and these people that are like half animal, half human. And we've got cats that are necromancers and like weird old Egyptian type artifacts. It's quite complex, and I definitely would say I struggled to follow the plot at times, and for that reason though it's got a lot of rereadability, and it's still definitely something I enjoy. And I think Volume 9, so I went into Volume 9 a little bit hesitant because Volume 8 wasn't my favourite. However, Volume 9 kind of went back to everything I loved about the earlier books in the series. So I think I'm going to put this in met expectations because I was hoping it would give me what it gave me. Okay, then we have Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson and Academy for Liars. I keep getting that title wrong. So this is kind of a dark academia book. I was hoping that it would be really strange like Vita Nostra, because basically this woman is having a really hard time in her life, basically contemplating suicide, and then she gets the opportunity to join this like secret magical school where they learn about the magic of persuasion. And initially the way that that's introduced was so cool and so weird. Unfortunately, it didn't do as much with it as I would have liked. It instead kind of swerved and focused in on this toxic relationship between this young girl and her professor. So it didn't give me any of the weirdness I wanted. It didn't really give me the dark academia I would have wanted with like the obsessiveness and the competition. All the characters kind of felt very flat. The ending was all kind of based around feeling some kind of satisfaction from the characters' journeys, and I didn't feel it because the characters never felt real to me. So this one I would probably put in not quite it, and I would say not as good as The Silence Factory. I can definitely see some people would like an Academy for Liars, but probably not the people that this book has been marketed to. But then we have The Dream Factory by Steph Mataku. So this is just like a really adorable children's book. I actually have it here on my shelf so I can show you how beautiful some of the art is. Where's a particularly beautiful page? It's basically about this cute little carerer who ruins the dream factory so people don't have these beautiful dreams anymore. They have horrible scary dreams instead, and then the carerer has to fix it. Just a short, cute, adorable children's story. I will put it into standout because it exceeded my expectations in that it was much more beautiful than I thought it would be. Then we have 17 Years Later by J.P. Pomare. So this is one of the few thrillers that I picked up. It's telling the story of this Australian podcaster who's come over to New Zealand to investigate this historical murder where this rich British family that was living in the middle of nowhere in New Zealand was killed supposedly by their chef, but the podcaster thinks maybe he didn't get a fair trial. So we're getting her investigation as well as the story of what actually happened written by the chef. And I don't read a lot of thrillers these days, but I do usually pick up things by J.P. Pomare because I just love the way that he pulls everything together, and I always enjoy the twists. I often don't see them coming. I also feel like he did such a good job in this of like building the tension and making me worry for the different characters. So I do think I'm actually going to put this up in favorites. Probably even above Detective Beans. Okay, then we have Christie and the Walking Disaster. So this is just another one of the Babysitter's Club graphic novel adaptations that they're doing. So the Babysitter's Club books were my favorite books when I was a young kid, and they've been adapting them to graphic novels. So of course I've been reading them all. It's just kind of fun nostalgia. In this one, Christie is starting up like a little league club for all the kids that are really not very good at playing, especially the Walking Disaster, which is this kid they know that's really accident prone. And I guess it's just a little story about them gaining confidence and Christie helping them to participate without feeling bad about not necessarily being at the top level, and like how to support each other as a team. It's a cute story. I really liked it. I would say met expectations. I'm always going to have a good nostalgic time with these ones. I'm actually going to jump to Karen's Grandmother, and I'll just put it right next to this. Karen's Grandmother's is here. This is Karen's Sleepover. So these are the Babysitter's Club Little Sister ones. So they're also adapting those to graphic novel, and these are kind of targeted at an even younger age range. I didn't read as many of them as a kid, but I did like them, and I'll just put them in the same place. Like, just fun, nostalgic times for me. I honestly can't tell, though, whether they'd be good for children to read at this point. But they must be selling, and any time I try to put a hold on them at the library queue is massive. So I don't know if that's just people nostalgia reading like me or people actually getting them for their children. Okay, then we have The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman, and I actually DNF'd this one, so I guess we have to put it in not quite it, but maybe at the top. So even though I DNF'd this one, I can definitely see a lot of people liking it. It's kind of like a almost grimdark retelling of the Arthur and Camelot stories, except not following Arthur and the main Camelot knights, following more the loser knights that were still hanging around when Arthur had gone missing. I won't pretend to be an Arthur and Camelot expert. I just found it really hard to get engaged in the story and the way that it was being told, because it kept switching between the different knights, and every time I'd start getting interested in one, it would move on to another one. But I do think if you like Joe Abercrombie and you want an Arthur and Camelot retelling, this might be for you. Then we have Januaries by Oliver Blake. So this is a short story anthology, and I thought they were all really good short stories. I do think, though, for my preference for short stories, I should have spread this out more. I read it all kind of within the month of January, spilling into February, and I probably should have read just one story a month. It is kind of formatted like that, so basically there are 3 stories for every season. So yeah, I should have read it, and I might actually reread it over a year. I think if you like Oliver Blake, you'll love this short story anthology because it's a lot of very similar vibes and a lot of similar like existential themes being explored through like supernatural elements and toxic relationships, and like just a lot of quite clever short stories. So I will put this in standout. I thought it was really good. I guess I'll put it above The Dream Factory. Oh, because January's the book actually has pictures as well. I haven't seen the pictures because I listened to the audiobook, but I do think I might buy the book so that I can look at the pictures. Okay, then we have Against the Darkness by Kendara Blake. So this is the 3rd and final book in a Buffy the Vampire like spin-off series. In this, we're following the daughter of Willow, who has now found herself a slayer after Buffy has gone missing. So now she's like a slayer and a witch, but like completely unprepared to be a slayer because that's not what she thought was going to happen. And she builds this friendship group, and they all kind of work together to fight off some scary creatures, as well as like investigating what's happened to Buffy and the other Slayers. So this was the third book. I wouldn't say that this was a standout or anything amazing, but like it was a solid continuation of the series. I think it wrapped it up well. I would probably say it met expectations. I could almost put it into low expectations fulfilled, but it isn't really that I had low expectations. I just had expectations that I wasn't the target market, and I am not the target market. But I think if you are the target market, you could like this. So we'll put it in met expectations. I definitely still think it was better than the ones that I've put in not quite it. So then we have Death at Morning House by Maureen Johnson. So I really like Maureen Johnson's Truly Devious series. It's kind of like a YA mystery thriller, and that's the same with Death at Morning House. I think if you like the Truly Devious books, you could like Death at Morning House. I did enjoy it. The only problem was that in it, Maureen Johnson has tried to talk about eugenics in that, so these couple of kids have died from this family in the past, and that's the murder mystery we end up investigating. And the parents of these kids, or the father of this kid, was really into eugenics. And while I'm not against the concept of eugenics being introduced to young adults, I didn't feel like the book went into enough why it was a bad idea. Like it kind of skirted around it, but I feel like when you're introducing that idea to young people, you need to make sure they understand the problems with the idea so that they don't accidentally think that it's a good idea. Anyway, for that reason I put it in not quite it. However, I put it right up the top because I still thought it was a really good mystery, and I still had a lot of fun with it, even though I'm also not the target market for this one. Okay, then we have House of Flame and Shadow. This will definitely go straight into low expectations fulfilled. Although, after the first book in that trilogy, I would have had high expectations for this, but then the second book in the trilogy, House of Sky and Breath, like lowered my expectations significantly. So House of Flame and Shadow was disappointing as I expected. It's like a romantasy story. The world is really cool, but while the first book was amazing, great, loved it, the characters were so strong, the plot was great, I had a great time with it. After that, we kind of just fell into a lot of Sarah J. Maasisms, with everyone being paired off and the plot being overly convenient, and just had a really terrible time with it. And why was it so long? Why was it so long? Again, maybe I'm just not the target market, but I was tricked by that first book in the trilogy. Okay, then we have Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. Honestly, I have to put it in not quite it. I'm still putting off doing a bigger kind of review. I've been trying to do series reviews, but doing a series review of the Stormlight Archives feels like a lot. I really loved, again, the first books in the series, the first 2.5 maybe. And then I feel like it went steadily downhill. There were still a lot of great things in Wind and Truth. And I think Brandon Sanderson's overall vision is amazing, but some of the details and some of the writing just were not what I was expecting from the series. So that's what that is. Then we have Not Till We Are Lost by Dennis E. Taylor. So I think this is the 5th or 6th book in the Bobaverse books where we've had this guy. He had himself frozen so that after he died he could be brought back later, but he does get brought back into the brain of a spaceship, and it's a self-replicating spaceship, so then he makes a bunch of himself, and all the Bobs kind of like spread out across the universe having different adventures. Honestly, these are just nerdy and fun, and I would say this met my expectations. Maybe right at the top of met expectations. I can't put it in standout, but it was a solid, good time. If you like the Bobaverse books, you will definitely enjoy this continuation. And if you like just nerdy sci-fi books with lots of problem solving, then I think you should pick up this series. Okay, then we have The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. So this is like a sci-fi murder mystery. It's basically like a post-apocalyptic world. The only survivors are living on this island. And right from the beginning of the book, you know there's going to be a murder, and you're kind of following the one character that's going to be put in charge of trying to solve that murder. But on this island, basically there is this AI security system, and the story is actually being told by the AI security system. So even though they can read everyone's thoughts, essentially, like they're in everybody's head talking to them. So you get the chapters from the perspective of the different people on the island, but the AI narrator will at times like insert little comments that let you know that they know more about what's going on and that there is more going on. And so also when the murder happens, this AI security system wipes everyone's memory. So when they're investigating the murder mystery, they don't actually know whether it might have been them. Like the murderer no longer knows whether they're the murderer. So I had a lot of fun with this. It doesn't have high ratings, but for me, it was a favorite. Like, let's put it at the top of favorites. I had a great time with it. I don't know why people don't like it. I think maybe because they're expecting something a lot more sci-fi, whereas this is more like cozy post-apocalyptic murder mystery. It just happens to be a little bit sci-fi. Okay, then we have Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell. So this is another one that I really loved. We'll put it up in my favorites, but still maybe not above those other two. So this, we're following this shapeshifter. She's basically this blob of stuff that can like absorb other materials to give herself structure. And there's this particular family that has accused her of killing their family member, and so they're trying to get revenge. And she's like, hey, I didn't do that. I'm just trying to live out in the swamp and have a good life. And then she also runs into this woman that she kind of forms a crush on, and she thinks, wow, this woman would be perfect for me to build a nest in her and have babies. And it's written in such a strange way. There's maybe some problems with the plot and maybe it drags in a few bits, but there are some like really delicious descriptions of like horrible shapeshifter activities, but the main character that you're getting the perspective of views it in such like a nostalgic and cozy way. So it's just such a great contrast. I loved it. Okay, then we have Tidal Creatures by Shauna Maguire, and this goes into Low Hopes Fulfilled, but I think it was better than House of Flame and Shadow. So I really loved the first book in the series, Middle Game. I thought it was amazing, 5 stars. I reread it to check after I read the second book because the second book I hated. But the first book I really loved, second book I hated. The third book was okay. This one is about basically these moon gods and goddesses that start being murdered. And there's so much potential in the concepts that Shauna Maguire is exploring in this world. And she did it so well in Middle Game. But then the second and third books, I just feel like they're too waffly. They don't get to the point. A lot of the themes or like the social commentary that's being added into the story doesn't feel like it meshes well with the actual plot, which again is what Middle Game did so well. So, I mean, I didn't expect to love this. I almost didn't pick this up. I was gonna not continue the series, but I thought I'd try it. Probably shouldn't have. Okay, then we have a couple of volumes of I Hate Fairyland. So this is a graphic novel series where this cute little girl got sucked into fairyland. It's meant to be a very short quest to get the key to leave fairyland. However, 27 years later, she's still stuck in fairyland because she sucks at these quests and she's really mad about it, and she's now just kind of like going around destroying everything. And so it's like super cute fairyland graphics with like really nice bright colors, but then also Gert just like enacting complete mayhem and carnage and like blood and guts and all of that. So again, a really nice contrast that I really enjoy. I think in volume 6, Last Gert Standing. Oh, I think this one, you know, I don't really remember it well. Does that mean I have to put it in Not Quite It? I mean, I think actually I'll put it in Met Expectations because I probably wasn't expecting that much. And probably the next I Hate Fairyland one was like a short story anthology kind of one by different creators. And maybe I liked 1 or 2 stories in that, but I can't really remember what happened in them. And also, to be honest, I went into it knowing it was by different creators and I kind of had low expectations. So maybe I'll put it in Low Expectations Fulfilled. Okay, then we have The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. So this is the sequel to The Book That Broke the World. I really liked The Book That Broke the World. Unfortunately, The Book That Broke the World, did I just say the right name or the wrong name? Anyway, The Book That Broke the World was a little bit disappointing. So I'd put it in Not Quite It. Maybe even below The Bright Sword. Is that fair? You know, The Book That Broke the World, there are some really amazing concepts in it. Maybe that bumps it up. Above Wind and Truth? Yeah, above Wind and Truth. I still just think it was written in a way where it's almost like it got too expansive for me, and I just felt confused sometimes about what was happening, and maybe it's my own fault, but I don't think it was entirely my fault. some of the things that happened didn't feel particularly believable, but some of the concepts were amazing. And I think that adds to it, you know, like, because my expectations were higher with this because the first book was so good and some of the ideas were so great. And then when it didn't quite deliver on the second book, I was like, oh, how annoying. But I still probably recommend that series just for the ideas. And I'm very hopeful for the third book coming out this year. Okay, then we have When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. This is like a Polish-inspired vampire story. And yes, Veronica Roth is the author of Divergent. But this is much more like vibey. I did find sometimes whenever there was any action, I didn't necessarily feel like the writing style fit very well for the action. But when it was more like emotional, character-based sections of the story, I really loved it. And this is another one that's getting a sequel this year, actually. I would probably put this in standouts and maybe right at the top. Like, if this is going to be a series, this was a really good beginning. I hope the second book doesn't let me down. Okay, then we have Dragon Fruit, and I've forgotten how to say this author's name. Lucia? I feel like that's wrong. Anyway, this is like a Pacific-inspired fantasy where there are these dragon eggs, and if you eat them, you can get a wish to come true. And so these people have been trying to track down dragon eggs so that they can use it to heal the queen? I want to say it's the queen. I've kind of forgotten. Oh, but they did have a dragon egg that they were gonna use to heal her in the past. However, this girl's father stole the egg and ate it himself to cure her. However, there is also meant to be like a problem or like some kind of something that goes wrong or curse to like balance out the wish coming true. So then now this girl is trying to help with their search for dragon eggs, but also has some problems with it. This one, I would probably have to put it in not quite it. Again, I don't think I was the target market because it is more of a YA fantasy. I'd probably put it Under the Bright Sword because I don't think the writing was quite as good, but still it was better than The Silence Factory. Like, I like the characters a lot better. And I actually think if you are the target market, like someone who reads a lot of and loves a lot of YA fantasy, that you could really like this, but just not for me. Then we have Mislaid in Parts Half Known by Sean A. Maguire, and this is the book that made me think, no, I really need to stop picking things up by Sean A. Maguire. And like, I am a hardcore completionist. I really wanted to continue and finish off the Wayward Children series because I love some of the earlier books. But again, I just feel like these aren't working for me emotionally anymore. And even though a lot of these books are like addressing really important topics, I personally don't feel like they're doing so with enough depth or nuance. So I guess I have to put this in low expectations fulfilled. And honestly, maybe even right at the bottom, because I was just really disappointed in that. And I actually have to say I got more enjoyment out of A House of Flame and Shadow. So yeah, that's pretty bad. And like, for a book with dinosaurs on the cover, very disappointing about the lack of dinosaurs. Okay, then we have Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse. So this is the third and final book in the Between Earth and Sky trilogy. Again, I really love Black Sun. Fevered Star, the second book, wasn't quite as good. And then this third book, I think it was a bit better than the second book, but for me, the characters seem to have lost a lot of what made me love them in the first book. So in the first book, we've basically got a bunch of different characters that are like representative of the different gods. So this is kind of like inspired by pre-Columbian America. And the first book had such great momentum as these kind of characters all come together for a big conflict. And then the conflict just kind of draws out into a more stereotypical fantasy battle. There was some cool dark magic, but not much happened with it. And I just didn't like the ending. I've seen some people really love it, but again, maybe I just wasn't the target market. Anyway, I will put this in not quite it. Was it better than Dragon Fruit or not? Honestly, I thought Dragon Fruit was a little bit more unique. So, and actually maybe I even liked An Academy for Liars better than that. I think I need to move Silence Factory down. That's what I need to do. Okay, then we have one last book, and that is Fetutoa and the Secret Spies by Steph Matuku. This one I'm going to put in standout. Honestly, maybe right at the top, even though this is another like cute children's book series. This is the third book in this series. So we're following Fetutoa, who's this young girl. Her mother has gone to work for this magician. And then Fetu ends up looking after the farm animals that this magician has. And the farm animals all talk and they're all a little bit ridiculous. In this particular book, some sheep turn up and the ram on the farm is kind of a sexist jerk to them. So then that leads to the sheep having a protest. But also at the same time, we have this other magician stealing our magician's tricks, and there's a big mystery about how that's happening. And I thought it was so clever. There were a lot of really great lessons in there for children, written in a way that I thought was quite accessible to children, but also like still a lot of really hilarious, entertaining jokes. And I think a few little comments that are specifically targeted for parents to enjoy the story as well. Like, this is one where I am not the target market, but I had a great time with it. I loved it. I thought it was so clever and so well done. I'm almost wondering if I should put it in favorites, but it maybe wasn't quite there, but almost. So this is the tier ranking of the 2024 book releases that I read. I feel like there's not enough standouts and favorites. It's definitely bottom heavy. A few too many disappointments. And I mean it. Some of those met expectations. I feel like, you know how when you have met expectations in like a performance review for your job, how it's framed a little bit negatively? That's how I feel. Like, even though they met expectations and that should be a good thing, I'm actually like, you only just met my expectations. I wish you'd be better. I'm not sure that's fair. Anyway, let me know if you've read any of these books because I would love to chat with you about them down in the comments, or let me know if there are any great 2024 releases that you think I've missed, or also let me know whether your 2024 releases that you read were on the positive side or the negative side. Let's chat down in the comments. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.